Welcome, parents, and we're thrilled to have you with us for episode 16 of Walk the Talk. And this one is sparked by the fact that I have recently finished reading the book The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And the book is topical. The book has a lot of great research and interesting information in it. And over the course of the next few weeks, I think that it will prompt me to be talking about several aspects of it, especially as it relates to our teenagers. But today, I wanted to ask Marelise if we could talk about this idea of, are we overprotecting our kids? And what does that mean for us and for them? And how could we maybe think about doing things differently if, in fact, we believe that we are overprotecting them? And before I invite Marelise to have her, give us her perspective, the reason that this comes up for me is because I'm very aware that as we are parenting our teenagers, one, it's very tricky because their brains are developing in a way in which we don't understand and we're not ready for, and we have to figure out how to meet them where they are. But we're seeing behaviors and attitudes that aren't necessarily comfortable for us, or we don't understand them, so we don't know where they're coming from. And yet, our responsibility and our job is to make sure that our kids arrive at 18 independence with enough skills, with enough confidence, with having lived their life up until that point in a way in which they feel confident moving forward, whatever that might look like for them. So I want to just introduce this idea of, are we overprotecting? And therefore, is that part of the problem of them not being ready? Because we have an epidemic of kids not ready to adult, so to speak. So what elements play into that aspect of life for our kids at this time? Okay, over to you.
Thank you so much, Isla. This topic is very close to my heart because it was a major thing that I had to learn as a single mom. And the thing is, this is often the case for many divorced parents. Not always, but often. Is the reason why there was a separation is because you don't necessarily agree on many things, and it's causing a lot of drama and friction in your home. So I left with a little 2-year-old, and whenever he went to go and visit his father in a different city, he would be exposed to situations that I would never feel comfortable taking him into, because his dad was in a different industry, construction, and they went all over the show into areas that were really not safe as far as I'm concerned. So at home, I had the opportunity to teach him about safety. I had the opportunity to teach him about being aware of your surroundings, being aware of what to look out for. It's me and him alone in this big wide world. So there are obviously things that I did my utmost to protect him from, but the best I could do was to try and explain to him why it's important to be safe, what it does to your confidence, what it does to your own feeling of peace and security, and what you can do as a child in your situation to try and look out for that. What it also did for me is whenever he went to go and visit his dad, where I had zero influence, wasn't able to protect, wasn't able to even say, yes, you can go there, but you can't go there. I needed to know that everything that I've taught him is enough to keep him safe, even situations that he might not understand it. So I needed to overcome my anxiety levels in order to help him overcome his. if that makes sense. And I actually I saw how that played out over the years and how new things continue. And many times I had to bite my tongue and try and hide my own insecurities and fears, because I knew that if he saw that, if I was imparting that, even though I'm saying the right words, if I'm imparting that kind of anxiety and insecurity, doesn't matter what I say, it's not going to have the desirable effect whenever he finds himself out there. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Mm. Yes, I think that, I mean, certainly it makes perfect sense. I think that what is challenging for us as parents is our instinct, that mama bear part of us that is, just literally wants to put them in cotton wool and keep them there for as long as possible is
Shield and shelter at all cost. Yes.
exactly. I mean, that is such an active part of us. That's nature and nurture.
Exactly.
However,
Mm.
it's not what is helping our child be ready for their own life in their own world without us. And I think that that awareness, starting to ask ourselves those questions, like, how can I, knowing that obviously what I want is I want my child to be happy, successful, able to take care of themselves, independence, all of these wonderful words. I want them to be resilient. We have this vocabulary of what we want for our children as they're grown, but we need to really be mindful of what are we seeding that is taking them in the right direction. And if what we're doing is keeping them safe in a way that is not actually helping them, but is having them be fearful of everything in their lives, and they're never going to take a risk, and they're never going to fail because it's too terrifying, and all of these aspects that I call kind of this overprotection piece, it's just not serving them, and it's actually not serving us. But the challenge is, how do we think about it? And then how do we change our our own mindset and behavior that is more supportive of what our kids need in order to get to this 18 milestone that I always talk about, and that they've got the skills, the confidence, and the competencies.
I think it's very important to have the conversations, even if it's not a situation that your child might find themselves in yet. When you're watching movies together, or you seeing something happening in the world, or there's a news report or whatever, be real. Talk to them about it. Talk to them about the kids at school. Talk to them about situations that friends are finding themselves in, even if it's not happening in your home. Talk to them about it and say, what would you do in that situation? What is your instinct? What would make you feel full? What would make you feel safe? Let's talk about that so that you have a game plan. You have an action plan if you should ever find yourself in that situation. We underestimate the value of that. We really do, because it's amazing. They're like sponges, especially when they're little, and there's so much that is new to them. If you can start talking from an early age about what is reality, what is happening out there, and why they don't need to be scared. Because they can either come and tell you and you can help them with it, or if they find themselves in a situation where you are not around and you're not there to protect, what must they do? It's amazing. You think most of the time, oh, I'm talking too much and nothing's going in. But I promise you, what I've seen time and time again is in those critical situations, something kicks in. It's amazing. And most of the time, I was surprised by what my child did in a situation. And I was like, how did you know to do that? And he said, Mom, you told me that.
Mm.
Remember when we were talking about this and that? You told me that. I was like, wow, thank you, God. I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
And that is why I know the value of addressing these things long before you think your child might need them. You are creating that awareness, you are creating that inner knowing, and you are actually equipping them in ways that you don't fully understand yet.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think this conversation, my motivation for this is more, I don't have any answers. But I think that, as we often do, just bouncing an idea backwards and forwards hopefully provokes for our audience a way of, I want to ask myself now some questions. What am I doing? What am I thinking? What's my long-term plan here? Do I even have one, or am I just operating moment to moment, and reacting as opposed to responding and figuring out where am I going? So this is one of those that is a very big topic of conversation right now in the US. Not sure how much it is in other parts of the world, but it definitely is a big conversation because of what we're seeing in the mental well-being, the mental health and well-being of our teenagers and young adults who are who do not feel equipped enough or well enough equipped to handle the
Mm.
things that are coming to them and at them
Mm.
at the later stages of their teenage and young adult.
Mm. I think something that is quite important to note is what is happening in the world. It's definitely relevant here as well. What is happening in the world is so new to everybody.
Mhm.
And even saying that to your child and saying, look, we are seeing things that we've never, ever seen before. We didn't think it was possible. How can we deal with this? How can you and I find a way of, if you should ever encounter this, that, or the next thing, how would you deal with it? Let's be proactive. Let's think about what we are hearing is happening around us, things that we hear people are struggling with. How would we do this in a way that would make us feel safer and more grounded and, more in charge of everything? Because I think even in those hypothetical conversations, things are dropped that become hugely relevant on a day that you might not think
Yeah.
it will. And the more you discuss things, it's like something that's coming to mind now. It's like when you have a fire drill. Most of those kids will never be in that situation, but because they had fire drills at school, and because you've learned from an early age to stop, drop, and roll, something inside of you feels like, well, if it should happen, I'll be fine. I know what to do. Or you can equip them on levels that neither of you even understand yet. But just say, if this should happen, because I said to my child, if your friends ever come to you wanting to do this, what would you do? And he's like, Mom, my friends aren't that stupid. And I'm like, well, let's hope so. Let's hope you never have to be in this situation. But what would you do? And I think sometimes just having that conversation leads to things that might be more relevant right now. And it also gives you the assurance that, wow, my child's actually quite with it. He's actually quite aware. And I quite like the answer that he's given me. And, then you can turn around and say, wow, I'm really proud of you. It's such a wonderful way to look at it. And again, that reinforces that feeling of confidence, that feeling of I'm fine, because that's the thing. In my home, I obviously I found myself in situations that my parents were definitely not prepared for. What did that do? It didn't bring us closer. It caused separation because I felt like I could never talk to them about this. They would think I'm just being ridiculous. Whereas even if you talk about ridiculous things, but it's voiced, it's out in the open, you can joke about it or you can cry about it, you can laugh about it, whatever. The fact that you have shared it and the fact that you have responded in a non-threatening way, in a curious way, in an inviting way, it opens that conversation. It strengthens that connection, that the day when you do need it, they're going to feel it's okay to come and talk to you. That was very important to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I encourage parents to do from a very early age, long before you think it's going to be necessary. Do it. I promise you it will serve well.
Well, I think I'm going to suggest that we close the conversation there because I think that's perfect. I agree with you 100%. And I think for every parent, every one of us, we make our own decisions. But maybe taking some aspect of this conversation to just ask yourself the question, kind of, what am I doing and how am I thinking about this? Thinking about our thinking. We're so overwhelmed with just being in survival mode often that we don't give ourselves the luxury of even thinking about our thinking. So taking that time, taking a moment there, I think is an opportunity. So why don't you close us out?
Okay. Thank you, Isla. That's amazing. And I'm so grateful that we can have these conversations. Because I feel like if I was privy to these conversations years ago, I think it would have created a lot more confidence in myself, in my parenting, and in all the 1,000 questions I constantly had because I was on my own. So I hope the conversations encourage other parents to really engage in this process, knowing they are not alone. It's completely normal and it's okay. We've got this. There are wonderful ways through this, and that's we're just trying to help them find it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Till next week.
Yes, I'll be here. Bye.
Good week.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.